Attention Talking Simpsons listeners, we have a special mini-series just for you.
We're going through the entire first season of King of the Hill, and you can only hear it if you're a $5 and up patron at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
We're giving the Talking Simpsons treatment to all 13 episodes of King of the Hill's first season, and if you want a free sample, you'll find the first episode available for free in the Talking Simpsons feed. Patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. It's the only place you'll find the first season of Talk King of the Hill.
Made you go click, 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 click. It's real easy, man.
I heartily endorse this event or product.
Ahoy hoy everybody, welcome to Talking Simpsons, the podcast that is so 1991. I'm your host, the handsome in an ugly sort of way, Bob Mackey, and this is our chronological exploration of The Simpsons. Who is here with me today?
Sparkle, sparkle, it's Henry Gilbert.
And who do we have on the line?
This is Jack Allison.
And today's episode is Simpson Tide.
Good luck, Dad. Although I'm morally opposed to the military-industrial complex of which you are now a part.
Aw, that's sweet, honey. I'll bring you back a hat.
And Henry will tell us what happened on this mythical day in real-world history.
Oh my God!
Oh boy, Bobby, the Austin era has begun as Stone Cold wins the championship at WrestleMania 14. Grease is reissued into theaters for its 20th anniversary alongside the inescapable Grease Megamix that was all over the radio at the time. And sitcom writers rejoice as the FDA approves Viagra for sale.
And so many jokes were written.
A million jokes were written.
It powered so many monologues. I thought you were going to talk about Austin Powers.
Oh, no. Oh, did that come out too?
No, that was 97.
Okay.
But, that Austin is more my speed.
Oh, okay. No. The Austin era, that was the classic call done by Jim Ross after Stone Cold Steve Austin won the title. And it was the beginning, truly, of the Attitude Era of professional wrestling. It's Henry's Wrestling Minute there. Yeah, the Grease thing, though, its 20th anniversary, and now it's getting closer to its 50th, but I didn't care much for Grease, but I could not escape that. The Megamix was on everything.
I don't recall that.
You didn't hear? I heard it at my high school. That all the kids were singing it. It was huge.
Weird.
It cut together all of many of the songs, not all the songs, but like say in the song of "Tell Me More, Tell Me More." Did she put up a fight? Then it goes into Grease Lightning, and it kind of cuts around all of the sex and rape stuff in the song. I'm shocked you didn't hear it. This was everywhere.
I have no memories of this.
In high school.
But Grease and Star Wars were coming back into theaters at the same point in history.
Yeah, it was a weird time. It was, yes, Viagra, the dick pill revolution began.
And now there are so many generic variants I hear about on podcasts. It's so great to hear people like Gilbert Gottfried talk about Blue Chew and things like that.
I never heard that one. The dick pills are everywhere now.
I will say, without podcast ads, I would not hear Gilbert Gottfried talk to me about cryptocurrency. And I'm not even kidding about that. It really made my day.
On Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast, to bring it back to him, I remember that was the first time I'd heard a dick pills ad read, and he talked about how his euphemism for it was it'll get your flagpole going at full mast or something like that.
He didn't use Stone Cold. I guess you don't want a cold erection.
No. I mean, it's a difficult thing for these ultra straight guys to also say I'm talking about your dick, but I'm straight.
Your dick in particular. But today's special guest is Jack Allison of the podcast Struggle Session. Hello, Jack.
Hi there. Thanks for having me, guys. This is exciting.
And Jack, you are a comedy professional. You're a
nominally.
You're a big time tweeter. You're Struggle Sesh, Jack AM. You are such a comedy pro.
Well, I mean, I have worked as a professional in comedy before. I am not currently, but I have worked professionally in comedy, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I do tweet a lot. You said that I both am a comedy professional and I tweet a lot. The two have not been concurrently true.
But that's one of my favorite things following you on Twitter is that you reveal a lot of secrets about the comedy industry with regard to say nepotism or why comedy is bad dad gets explained quite well. By you
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I like to think of myself as the masked magician, but for the comedy world, and not wearing a mask. You know the Fox series where he revealed all the magician's secrets or whatever.
Right,
I like to think of myself as a kind of masked magician type.
As a comedy professional, you must have enjoyed The Simpsons at some point in your life.
Yeah, no, I love The Simpsons. The Simpsons was one of the first ones, and I'd say the second one ended up being South Park, of a show that I, like, as a child, sort of had to sneak to watch because I knew it was a cartoon that was intended for adults. So I do remember, like, sneaking off to watch Simpsons and then finally getting caught by it by my parents, and then, they kind of just got on board and liked The Simpsons. So, I watched The Simpsons near every night. Like, when I was growing up, it wasn't really, God, I don't remember, like, how old I would have been when The Simpsons started, but there were a number of seasons already out. And so really for me, The Simpsons was that daily rerun at 7:30 every night on Fox.
And in your professional comedy writing career, did you ever get in the sphere of The Simpsons or anywhere near the orbit of the production of it?
Yeah, my wife was an assistant there, and Mike Mitchell was too.
Yeah, I knew your old roommate was. Yeah.
My wife was the writer's assistant there up until just a couple of years ago. She'll be credited on most of the newer episodes. Kate Raft. So yeah, I mean, I know Selman a little. Like, I'm not like close with any of these people, but like I like Selman and stuff, and I've met some of these people, and I've been to a table read before.
Oh, that's great.
I've been around Simpsons world a little bit. I've been to their shitty little bungalow on the Fox lot.
We've heard a lot about that bungalow. Yeah,
we asked all the questions.
Sounds pretty hard. I wonder though if that Disney's going to dump that. They're renting that space right now. Like Disney, according to that Hollywood Reporter piece, any Fox productions, like they don't have the space for it on the Disney property right now, so they're renting production space that Fox is still using from Fox, and I would think that's probably going to not last very long. Knowing
you guys do you have any predictions on what's going to go down with Disney's new ownership of The Simpsons? I mean, I apologize, you've already talked about that on the show here.
Oh, I have a few.
Yeah, Henry definitely has a few. I think it will just be an endless property now, like any Disney character. And my old theory was that when a prominent voice actor on the show dies, like let's say Harry Shearer or Julie Kavner, I'm listing the oldest people first.
Yes.
They would say, out of respect for these people are the characters, we can't continue the show. Disney does not believe in that. Disney has your understudy waiting for you to die if you're voicing a character.
Staring at you from the
But
other
I mean,
side.
Fox was ready to replace them all the last time they were trying to get better pay. Like, I think under Fox or under Disney, this thing is like never going to end as long as it's profitable. The only way I think Simpsons ends is like the same as Reno 911, which my understanding was when Reno 911 got canceled, the justification by the network was the reruns get just as good ratings as new episodes.
Wow.
So why should we buy more? Because like the reruns do just as well. So I think that whether it's Fox or whether it's Disney, you were never going to see Simpsons end until the reruns are doing as well as the new episodes. You know what I mean? Here's my just little theory, and I don't know if it's like they cancel it or something first, but I believe that we'll get a Simpsons relaunch of some type where they kind of like try to Star Wars the Simpsons and say like, and imply a little bit like, maybe it was bad before, but like we're back and it's like the way it used to be or something,
Yeah.
I think they could have some similar approaches to that. I think my guesses also involve how they've treated other things, not just Star Wars, but Muppets. And I think like Simpsons could end up getting the Muppets thing where they give it one big prestige relaunch. Right. And then when that didn't really take or become hugely popular, they're like, well, let's try a smaller thing. And then when that doesn't take, they try a smaller thing after that. And then it just becomes a thing that if super fans want it, it exists, but they don't really do stuff.
Now, I think this, though. I think that there's a lot of crossover between how Disney has dealt with their acquisition of the Muppets and how they've dealt with their acquisition of Star Wars, because I would push back a little bit. I think that first Muppet movie they put out from Disney was fairly beloved, and I think everybody like kind of liked it a lot. And then, it was in the second one, which I know people actually liked the second one, but it just didn't have as much excitement. Like, it kind of showed that they didn't, have that much of a vision for the franchise or something like that. Then they also swung and missed with the TV show. I think you're seeing a similar thing with Star Wars, where it's like we had the big Force Awakens. Last Jedi is well liked, obviously you guys like it, but it did not do as well in the box office Office, and there's all this sort of fan controversy around it. Solo is like an outright failure, just like the Muppets TV show, and now they're kind of in this like middle ground where they don't know what the fuck to do with this acquisition. I think that there's like a lot of bleed over between the two types of acquisition, or the two acquisitions that Disney's done.
Yeah, actually, with Star Wars and Muppets, they had this kind of underlying theme in both Force Awakens and the Muppets of saying this got bad, or this isn't good anymore, or the characters are tired and sad, and now they're coming back. Which that would be weird to do in The Simpsons, to just have like Homer as a statement say, "I've been pretty tired," or "Ooh, boy."
I know, it's tough. I feel like they could do I feel like Disney won't let their properties just go on as kind of like this sludge that's unexciting or something like that. I feel like they're going to want to squeeze these new acquisitions to like make as much money as possible. And so I don't know how they'll do it, but I do foresee some kind of, hey, wink, wink, The Simpsons has been bad, but now The Simpsons is back. And I think the worst case scenario is just like Star Wars. It comes back and everybody thinks it is good again, and it's just not.
I'm starting to think that the characters and the reruns are more valuable to them than a new show or continuing the show.
Sure.
But I think like Homer and Bart and Mr. Burns and everyone will just be like Mickey and Goofy and Donald, where they will come back for different things. Especially, I mean, not to be too morbid here, but Matt Groening is in his 60s. He's got maybe 20 years left of control over this, or
Unless
at least
they
some
buy
sort of
him
input.
out fully.
Yes.
They could also just give him $4 billion like they did Lucas and just buy him out.
But I'm thinking like by the time we all die, we'll be on our like fourth Homer voice, and there'll be like a goof troop version of The Simpsons where it's like, remember Homer? Now he's back in this new show, and like everything's different. So
I do think that we'll start seeing like, at like corporate events, it'll be like Mickey Mouse handing it off to Bart or something like that, like with no irony.
Yeah, and I would think Nancy or Dan would probably be into that. Okay, last thought on the Disney thing for me is I think in my previous calculations, think about Disney Plus, because the reportage I had read beforehand was that the FXX thing would last a couple more years and they couldn't be allowed onto Disney Plus, which now sounds like Disney just like threw enough money at it to make
bought
that
them out.
Yeah. And so because of that, it being on Disney Plus, they have a deal till season 32, 2 more years of Simpsons on the Fox network. Perhaps when that ends, the repackaging happens as a Disney Plus original series that's more prestige style.
That does feel like actually a good fit. It's like Simpsons is coming to Disney Plus, and it's like new and better and just like in how you remembered it before. I do think I think that's a good sort of arbitrary, because I don't think they're going to care. They don't have the Fox network. They didn't buy the network. That was like carved out in their deal because they already own ABC, right? I think that is the case.
They can't buy Fox.
Yeah, they can't buy the Fox channel. So I don't see why Disney would continue to deal with Fox for the Simpsons show rather than pulling it and putting it on their own platform. And that does feel like a kind of nice arbitrary marker for them to be like, it's a relaunch.
Yeah, and then they can slim down the staff, employ fewer expensive writers.
Sure.
Get rid of their current, deal with
Gracie?
No, well, Gracie, but also the animation studio.
Oh, Film Roman.
Yeah. And just because also what does Disney need to have a third-party animation team with Film Roman there? Like they just bring it all internally, shave off the costs, and then
it's also possible that like Disney will make the show look better. Like, you know what I mean? Like
so.
Disney is pretty fucking good at animation. Like I could see them making it feel better than the weird too thin lined HD Simpsons that are like dead quiet. The new episodes are very weird, and not just from the writing. I actually think from like how it looks and sounds on screen. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
It's quiet. It's scored weird. It's not scored enough. But Disney could make the show better. So, but even if they do cancel it, we can still do this podcast for 12 more years. I've done the math. So if they were to cancel it today, we still have 12 more years worth of podcasts to do.
No
and we're
matter
doing
what,
it all.
you guys are gonna be able to bleed the Simpsons drier than Disney or Fox or whoever, just because you started later.
They should hire us to help them with that. Just consultant fee, man. I do. But why don't we get to this episode?
Let's talk about Simpson Tide. So more fun stuff. Production information. This is one of 4 3G production episodes written in 1995, I believe right after The Critic wrapped on Fox. and it's Al Jean, Mike Reese, and a skeleton crew like David Stern,
Reed Harrison,
and also the two writers for this episode, Joshua Sternin and Jennifer Ventimiglia, formerly Jeffrey, and they were two critic writers as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, it was worth mentioning. We mentioned it on the Round Springfield episode. We'll mention it again that, yes, Jennifer Ventimiglia is the first trans person to write for The Simpsons, though they didn't transition until about a decade after they had left the show. But so it's worth noting just as a fun historical record there.
Also, hopefully that was not considered dead naming or anything. Their name is on the episode as that, so I just want to point out, in case you're confused why I said Jennifer.
Wikipedia too. It is tough. I don't know what that,
Yeah.
I don't know what the rules are for that kind of
So if I messed up, please let me know. But the director for this episode, Milton Gray, and one of our great animation experts that's been on the show, not on this show, but What a Cartoon, Tad Komorowski, he actually emailed me with information about him out of nowhere, just like, oh, here's some thoughts about Simpson Tide. And this guy is 77 now, and I believe he's still getting work on the show or trying to get work on the show, but he started as an in-betweener on The Jungle Book. So that's how old he is and how much he's been in the animation world.
Wow.
He worked with Ralph Bakshi a lot. Apparently, he could never really rise to the rank of regular director for the show. He might have been too old for those duties at this time, but the way Tad tells me that, I guess a lot of directors were taking their vacations around this time, so they basically gave him this episode. He didn't have a lot of creative input on this one. He was just sort of a very workmanlike worker, but it's a good-looking episode. But this is the one episode he did direct, Milton Gray, and he was never a director after that, but he continued working on the show.
Milton Gray also directed the cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue.
No way.
Yeah, I saw that. I want to interview him just about that.
Okay.
Yeah, he's one of the many directors on it, but Milton Gray, is a director for Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue.
He just directed the ALF segments, I think.
How involved was the government in that? I want to ask him. No, I looked at his Milton Gray's thing too. I saw that he was he's credited as co-director on Crepes of Wrath, which sounds like a Kent Butterworth situation.
Yeah.
Where they figured they decided after his one, they took it away from him and gave him a co-director, and they're like, nah, you can't do that. He's based on, I did look up his Animation Guild profile, and what looks to be written by him, he really talks about how he is a master animation timer. Like, he has done animation timing on The Simpsons forever, mainly under Mark Kirkland, and that his most recent jobs were like the top animation timer on Marvel animation projects up to 2017.
He's still doing it, yeah. And like I said, these are part of the 3G production series, and they were written in 1995, and then some of them aired in 1998, which is why a lot of these jokes do feel like, I mean, they're dated now, of course, but at the time they were like, oh, you're referencing this now? Especially when Lisa Sachs is ostensibly supposed to take place in 1995, but it aired in 1997. And there are very specific things pointed out in an episode that tells you it was a 95 episode. But it's kind of like a strange there's some weird
I also don't think this episode's that funny. Or there are some bits.
There's some funny parts in it.
There's
one part especially that I was like, that made me laugh out loud, actually.
They did not set out for this to be a Crimson Tide parody. I guess we're bearing the lead. This is partially a Crimson Tide parody. They had this episode for the show, the two writers, and as they were writing it, Crimson Tide came out. I assume it was a book first, but it was popularized as the movie.
I think it was an original film.
I just assumed it was a Tom Clancy.
Well, it's a Tom Clancy ripoff. 100%. It was Jerry Bruckheimer saw there was a Tom Clancy.
This is a Deep Impact.
Yeah. They just like, we can make one too. I rewatched it as prep for this episode. I went above and beyond.
Wow.
I hadn't seen it since I saw it in theaters with my mom in 1995, and it's a good dad movie, I'd say. It's just men yelling around Navy propaganda.
And uncredited writing by Quentin Tarantino, I'm reading.
Oh, good God, yes. Like if you watch it now, there are multiple scenes where it's just like, that just came out of Quentin Tarantino's mouth. Like he just said, there's a bit where Denzel Washington breaks up a fight between two sailors, and one sailor's like, well, he said that the Silver Surfer by Mobius is better than the Silver Surfer by Jack Kirby. I was like, well, that's Quentin Tarantino right there.
But I guess that as they were writing this episode, that movie came out and was popular, so they incorporated more of those elements and named it this to reflect the movie. Of course, that was a 95 movie, and we're in 1998 now, so you can see it reflects the time in which it was written.
I would feel by 1998, most people did not remember Crimson Tide, the movie.
Did it linger in our cultural brains? This movie,
think so.
I think
This
it just
is like the common Simpsons problem is like how long it takes to animate things. That it's like we're going to be seeing the Simpsons about like Lime scooters in like after the presidential election or something.
It really also was a critic problem where they had to guess which movies would be popular to parody because it took 9 months from the writing process to see the episode. So often they would parody things and you'd be like, "This, no one saw this. I don't get your jokes about this based on the trailer."
Which, look, I don't think I couldn't guess what movies will be popular back then either. Now it's just like you're pretty safe making a Marvel movie reference, I think.
There are only like 12 movies a year now. It's fine.
And this is also the final Mike Reiss show run episode.
And we talked to him on the Patreon. We have an interview with him.
Yes. Al Jean and Mike Reiss, they were, in case you're brand new to the show, they were the writing team that were hired in season 1, some of the first writers on the Simpsons staff. Season 3, they ascend to showrunner after Sam Simon kind of steps away, and they run seasons 3 and 4, leave for the critic, but still do this stuff on the side. Mike Reiss, including, they also worked on Teen Angel, which was canceled actually a month before this episode aired. Based on reading Mike Reiss's book, he came to hate Hollywood and everything involved in it, and quit.
Man after my own heart.
And he was after showrunning and creating a couple shows. I think he was rich enough to, and also not having children or divorcing. I think Mike Reiss could actually afford to do that. So he quit and moved to New York and went on a lot of expensive-looking vacations with his wife. It looks like a pretty great life that Mike Reiss has.
And now he writes children's books, and I think even he finds the process strange, where he writes a book and sends it to his publisher, and someone else illustrates it, and then it's a book. He has no impact on like who draws it, what the pictures look like. He was complaining about the cover of his last book, like, "I don't like this." It's like, wow, the world of children's books must be odd. I guess, well, number one, you have to be famous to write a children's book, or like an established writer. You can't just write a children's book.
No, I don't think you can just write a children's book on spec and expect to get that out there. You can't just come up with your own little lesson about why lying is bad and just send that in.
What can you say that hasn't been said already? Unless you try to couch it in like the Mueller report or whatever.
This episode is like, I guess, right at the cusp of like the Al Jean solo showrunning episodes.
We are that will start in season 13, but after leaving Disney, Al Jean is like sneaks into the show slowly, like, because as you know, Jack, with a lot of WGA shows, I don't know if this is still the case.
At 10 it became GA. It was not a guild show until 10.
I guess they were
interesting.
They were still abiding by these rules, but for shows, I assume it's the same for a lot of shows. But every season needs a few freelance scripts. It's a way to get new people into the industry. It's fairness.
Also a way to get the older guys to keep their health insurance.
That too. And previously on The Simpsons, we would see newer writers do freelance scripts who would eventually become, great writers in Hollywood. But after season 9, I believe like Al Jean would gobble up all of those freelance scripts. So there'd be 2 Al Jean shows a year. And then in season 13, he'd take over the show and he runs it to this very day.
Oh, yeah, because their Disney overall deal lasted 3 years. So it ended in 97. And Reiss wanted out and Al Jean wanted to stay. Al Jean also has gone through what seems like costly divorces, if you want to wonder why he'd stay. But he sticks around and rejoins the staff as a solo writer, which, I don't know, Jack, from the insider perspective, how hard is it to decouple a professional relationship like that after
I
decades?
think it doesn't matter if you're working with like friends and, people that have like, that are going to be hiring you either way, like at Simpsons, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
They probably had representation and all their existing deals were done as a, team or something like that. But yeah, in a normal world where they were just like a pair of screenwriters like out there and then had sold a movie or something, it might be very difficult for them to break in individually, but Al Jean was just going to get the job from his friends at Simpsons. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Jack, one more insider question. What do you think of the Harvard Mafia of The Simpsons?
It's bad, I think, to be honest with you. Like, it's tough, man. Like, it's like that when that show started, like, that is a super smartly written show. And I do think that there was like a kind of camaraderie or something like that, that came from the fact that a lot of these people like had worked together at Lampoon and, that there was a sort of shorthand that they could use there. But I do think that like in the intervening many, many years, it has kind of made the show, I think, like more alien and like disconnected from, any action actual people, and I do think it's like in some ways like a little bit like just ugly and sort of off-putting to outsiders. Like, there are for example, like, Mike Mitchell, super funny guy, like by all accounts, like actually a very, very funny writer, like would never be considered to write something there because he's not like part of the Harvard thing. You know what I mean? Like it's just this kind of like elitist element that I think that honestly has like not done the show any favors, and, was maybe fine at the outset, but like now just is kind of like a, alumni association or something like that.
That's why we have a lot more respect for Mike Scully now, who I guess formerly was known to have ruined the show. That was the story, but now I think we've all changed our minds, or at least have a more informed opinion. But he is a college dropout who wrote jokes for
Yakov Smirnoff.
Yes.
Scully's funny as fuck.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Great.
He's awesome on Twitter. He's really funny, and he's a great guy to talk to. We interviewed him as well. And the story behind him was, according to fans, like he ruined the show. And there are some changes to his seasons that are different. But I will say I respect his different perspective as an outsider in a Harvard room.
I'll say outright, just like to just put a fine point on it. I think that this is a very Al Jean episode, and I think that the show could probably do with some new blood as a showrunner. I love the critic. I think Al Jean's a funny guy, but he's been in that job for a very, very long time. And I think the show would probably be well suited for some new blood, and specifically Matt Selman.
I did feel that Megan Amram episode from a couple months ago now, at the time you're listening to this, listeners, that episode did feel fresher to me, and it felt like, at the very least, the way it engaged with current day topics, which were 2 years old by the time the episode came out, but the way it engaged with those topics was not in the musty old way that I felt they would have in other episodes. Like that Yale episode about robotic SJW students sucks shit. And the Megan Amram one is a lot, it felt more written by a person under 30.
And I will say, like, there are good parodies, but that's a sort of habit he falls into. There are some unnecessary parodies in this episode.
Yeah.
He relies on that device a lot. I mean, number one,
Family Guy.
Yeah, I mean,
this episode's very Family Guy.
He and Mike Reese, their first job in Hollywood, at Harvard, at the Lampoon, they wrote parodies. Their first job as writers was on Airplane 2. Which is a parody movie, a satire. They just grew up in the world of writing parodies and satire, so that is what he's comfortable writing, and that's why, like, a lot of these episodes in this 3G production series, almost all of them are a parody of a movie, or a TV show.
Well, and I complained about this before in the Poppins one, but my personal rule as a critic is that if your entire episode is the core is a film parody, then you're not allowed to do other film parodies around the core film parody you're doing. And yet there's many of those before you even get into Crimson Tide.
There's a deer hunter scene. There's a very odd, that was the most Family Guy-ish one to me, where Mo runs to the back where there's a deer hunter scene happening with Krusty, who just sits there and doesn't say anything while he's there in the scene from Deer Hunter.
And Skinner is there too.
Yeah, that at least makes sense. Skinner, he is... You know, what a Deer Hunter McMahon from the Deer Hunter movie.
But it makes sense that Al Jean's last episode as showrunner before he became showrunner again was Cape Fear.
Yes,
which is a great episode, and it is a parody. And I think, Henry, I think it does stick to just parodying one thing. Just being a parody of the Scorsese movie.
There is a shot in there that's a parody of Psycho.
Oh,
at
well,
the very least.
You can still do that.
I will also say this, that Cape Fear works consistently within the like existing storyline of the show. You know what I mean? Like we have this character, Sideshow Bob, that wants to kill Bart. And so like that plot line actually just makes sense to put the Simpsons characters into it. I'm not so sure that like Homer is the captain of a fucking submarine does actually make sense within the like context of the show that we know.
And there are some story things in this episode I don't quite understand, but I guess we'll get to those when we get to those.
Well, and Cape Fear is also an amazing, one of the best animated episodes they ever did.
Rich Moore, right?
Like, I think it was Rich Moore's final one because he left for Critic just like the other two guys. Yeah. But all right, why don't we get into the episode itself? They begin with a Rocky and Bullwinkle couch gag, which I like that at least they got the real music of Frederick Steiner, like that.
It's very well done. That couch
gag. It was a cool look. It was cool animation. I liked it.
Yeah. And then we get into the opening with the Planet of the Donuts, which on the commentary, Mike Reese even admits this is probably a Critic joke they didn't use on Critic and reused here.
Simpson, you stand accused of eating half the population of the Planet of the Donuts.
As Hammer's defense attorney, I feel we should be massive. Hey! Did you just take a bite out of me?
Maybe.
I sentence you to death.
Yeah, so you were saying, Henry, that was taken from an unproduced critic episode,
Yes.
as were a few other things, like Sherry Bobbins getting sucked into the plane. That was going to be one of those opening film
reuse
clips.
If you're going to write the jokes and they don't
Yeah.
get put on TV, reuse them. That's not so bad. But it always, it does feel, when it feels recycled and it doesn't feel as true to the show,
Yeah.
if it's just something Jay Sherman would have done.
That's why this production run does feel a little criticky. They had just done the critic, and I'm sure they were reusing a lot of jokes they had written for the planned third season that never got produced.
I mean, that makes sense because, like, this episode does have a, and I this is what I was sort of getting at before with the Cape Fear episode is, like, it does have a quality of, like, just not fitting within the universe of Simpsons. And I think this is something, is this, like, before or after the, like, Homer becomes an astronaut type of episode?
Way after that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's way after? Then I think this is in that grand tradition of,
Yes.
like, and I even like the Homer becomes an astronaut episode kind of, but this is in that grand tradition of, like, oh, we just are not a show about, like, a family in, like, small town middle America anymore.
Yeah, it is a Homer gets a job episode, which I think tonally too, maybe what makes this stand out in season 9 is that if this had aired, if this was a plot in 3 or 4, I think it would have felt more normal. But if we're seeing it now during the Scully years, like it feels weirder, and you notice the differences even more.
The Simpsons will be right back.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Instead of joining the military-industrial complex, we love all of you listeners, and we especially want to thank this week's guest, Jack Allison. We love him on the podcast Struggle Session, on his near-daily video streams at Jack AM on Twitch. You should check all of that out and follow him on Twitter at Jack Allison, because he shares a lot of fun industry insider information about comedy. And if you'd like to support this podcast and hear next week's episode a week ahead of time and ad-free, it's so easy to do. Just go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. $5 a month helps me and Bob do this as our full-time job and get awesome guests like Jack and all the people else we've had on this. Plus, you'll get a ton of bonuses for your $5. You'll get to hear every episode of Talking Simpsons a week ahead of time and ad-free. The same goes for our sister podcast, What a Cartoon. And that is just the beginning. That $5 a month will get you access to all of our Patreon-exclusive podcast mini-series. You can hear me and Bob go episode by episode through all of The Critic, every episode in the first season of Futurama, and right now we are just wrapping up our newest miniseries, Talking of the Hill, where we go through all of season 1 of King of the Hill, episode by episode. It's tons of fun, and you can only hear it if you sign up at the $5 a month level at Patreon. Plus, you'll get to hear all of our over 20 exclusive interviews with writers who have worked on The Simpsons, in some cases since the very beginning. You'll only hear those if you're a patron at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Please sign up today. I'm real sorry Seagull took your sailor hat. May I suggest, instead of getting a new one, signing up at the $10 and up level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Now, I know that's a little more than the $5 a month, but you get so much for your premium pledge. Not only do you get all the previous $10 and up content we made, including videos and exclusive commentaries, but you'll get our hit exclusive monthly podcast, What a Cartoon Movie. Me and Bob talk for over 3 hours at a time about a different animated feature film once a month, as chosen by our patrons. Batman Mask of the Phantasm, Kiki's Delivery Service, Akira, A Goofy Movie, Secret of Nim, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Aladdin, all have been covered. Over 22 hours of amazing podcast enjoyment you can only hear at the $10 and up level, and in June we'll have another great one. I'm sure you're going to love it. So please consider checking out the $10 and up level at Patreon. It is worth your while, and again, really helps me and Bob do this full time, and we appreciate every single one of our patrons. So please, once more, patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Homer gets woken up from his dream after, again, the Apes parody then turns into like a King Kong parody briefly. Which I'm like,
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
pick
that
your
shot.
parody. Yeah.
That shot of him reaching into the box for the donuts, right? Yeah.
When Homer, I do really like the animation of the perspective of his drool dripping.
good, yeah.
I did. That was really good. And we get a little callback to the Giant Hand Man, his only other appearance in the show.
I was so excited to see this because I forgot about this. They gave him an origin.
Yeah.
You get to see how he got his giant hand. But apparently he got it as a child because the first incident of someone making fun of his giant hand was in 1956.
Yeah, wait a
So was he
minute.
working at the whatever? Who cares? But I'm just saying, I'm glad that he came back. They remembered him. That's not even an Al Jean episode. It's a David Merkin episode.
Yeah, that I am kind of shocked at that they brought back somebody they didn't invent. According to the wiki too, he's never appeared again. This is his only other appearance.
Bring him back.
So yes, they follow the Marvel Comics rule of radiation makes something big. They throw it into the reactor, and it's a success as far as Homer is concerned in this next clip.
Sir, we found the problem. Some idiot threw this in the reactor core.
Success!
You did this? How could you be so irresponsible?
It's my first day.
Since I'd never seen you before, maybe it is your first day. Very well, carry on.
Sir, that's Homer Simpson. He's been working here for 10 years.
Oh, really? Why did you think you could lie to me?
It's my first day.
Well, why didn't you say, whoa, you're fired.
One thing that happens in this episode is Homer gets fired and he never gets rehired.
Nope, they just don't care.
I just remembered that.
Yeah.
I think maybe Al Jean was under the idea that you still needed a reason to get Homer out of the plant. When Mike Scully would just be like, who cares? He's over here now doing this thing. So I feel like he still felt like he needed to build in a reason why Homer couldn't be at his job or had a different job.
To me, this is like the hallmark of these sort of Al Jean-ish episodes. Like, this is a very Al Jean structure episode where it like starts off with one thing, totally unrelated. Like, the episode opens on like completely unrelated stuff, and by the end of the first act, we're into a completely different plot for the rest of the episode. So like, this episode opens with like Homer gets fired from the power plant because he put a donut in the reactor core, and that's going to lead us to that he is going to join the Navy.
You think that would be the story? Like, the breadwinner for this family has no job now.
Yeah.
And that is not even a concern.
They don't seem that worried.
Yeah.
Right, which is, I guess, I mean, it's so funny because The Simpsons as a series started with like the very real threat of like Homer not even getting fired, but not getting his Christmas bonus.
Yeah.
Like, the show was about this very real sort of family, like sad heartstrings pulling kind of thing of like, he didn't get his Christmas bonus. He wasn't gonna be able to do Christmas for the family. Now Homer's like getting outright like fired act one for like throwing a donut in the thing. And that's going to lead him to immediately become the captain of a submarine.
Well, and also in the like fourth or fifth episode, Homer's Odyssey, it's the first time he's fired, and he legitimately contemplates suicide.
What a weird episode, yeah.
It's a weird.
He legitimately almost attempts suicide.
Yeah, he is going to do it. He's just like, he is stopped briefly by the family, and they're like, okay, you're not going to kill yourself. Great. And that's just, they just move on. And it's
let's get you drunk.
Well, I'm talking about continuity, though. Another thumbs up on continuity. When Smithers says he's worked there for 10 years, that is correct, because he started the day Bart was born. So
okay.
10 years.
Makes sense.
And so Homer is fired. Nobody really seems to be that, but I mean, he's sad on his couch, but why not have a worried about money scene with him and Marge? I mean, they've done them a lot. Maybe it just feels repetitive at this point.
But maybe if they've done them a lot, maybe that's him getting fired from his job is repetitive. You know what I mean? Maybe we just the whole him getting fired from his job thing, if all the beats around that feel like we've done them a million times.
And they also bring back one of the very few African-American writers or voice actors in the show's history for this episode, Michael Carrington.
Mm-hmm.
But Michael Carrington's a very funny guy, but he does not have a Harvard background. He is a stand-up who became a comedy writer.
He played the stand-up in Homer and Apu.
Yes, yeah. White guys do this.
Yeah, and he also wrote Homer's Triple Bypass. He was the freelancer who wrote that. But yeah, he plays all of the black characters.
He was also Sideshow Raheem.
Yeah.
And when they had a Spike Lee type, I guess they don't directly call him Spike Lee on The Critic, but the Spike Lee character who he meets in the season 1 episode where he's making a movie.
Oh, okay.
That was also Michael Carrington.
That's right. Yeah.
I think it's good when they hire black guys to play black characters. That's a actually a good casting choice.
This episode, though, has a real 90s perspective on the military that I appreciate.
I love
where
that, yeah.
it's like, it's sacrilege to say this now, but it's just the military is pointless. It's too much money. Everyone who works for the military is a drunk or a slob, and their jobs are very easy.
That's what this episode says.
Yeah.
That's not Bob saying that. That's the episode's opinion.
Yeah, it's like the sign for the Naval Reserve. It's not just a job, it's a really easy job.
My opinion.
Yeah. Well, this is way before the troop. This is only actually 3.5 years before troop respecting got foisted upon us. I mean, these jokes here don't reflect the forever war we're in now,
Right.
and they're so it's funny to go back to them. All these jokes about how like the military sucks because they're not killing people. Boo.
Yeah. Now we have to respect them because we have them actually out there killing people.
Well, these jokes about the reserve have a real direct thing that happened in my life. I had a high school buddy who was like, he was the guy who would imitate Chris Farley all the time, if you knew that type of guy.
Oh, real
in high
cut
school.
up.
Oh, the class clown, because he could repeat Chris Farley gags and it looked kind of like him. He was a fun guy. And in 2000, when he graduated, he's like, you know what? The Army Reserve sounds like a good thing. It's just, it looks easy. They'll pay for college later. Good times. I think by his second time in Iraq, he changed his mind on that one.
Yeah.
But these kinds of ads or this way of thinking legitimately lied to him and a whole generation of service people who got completely fucked by it.
Yeah.
And it makes me angry.
I have similar stories. I graduated from high school in the year 2000, and the common sentiment was like, college is for suckers. The Army is totally cool. It's way easy. You'll not fight in a war. You get paid. They take care of you. Get good health insurance. It's such a scam. It was viewed as a scam. Like, join the Army. It is such a scam. Okay, boot camp sucked, but after that, man, it is such a scam. And then 2001 happened.
Yep.
Interesting. That's so funny. I graduated like slightly after that, so I was in like 2004. So my entire high school, it was like the people trying to recruit you and shit, but it was a totally different attitude of like, fuck that. I think the recruitment probably got harder for them.
I'm really glad to hear that.
That's good. I look back on it now. It felt normal then. But in multiple classes, our military recruitment people got to speak to our class and say, "You should join." I was like, "How is this legal? This is fucked up."
There was real shit because I had to sign up for. You have to sign up for the draft still. Like you have to still sign up for selective services when you turn 18. And I still remember that Gillette sent me a free razor because I signed up, and I was like, so. I signed up and the Army promptly sold my address to Gillette to send me a fucking free razor.
I got the exact same thing in the mail.
Wow. So funny.
Oof,
I guess that's the true, passing into adulthood for American men is when they get the free Gillette razor. The government sells their address to the Gillette company
in exchange for the use of your body in war.
Exactly.
I think I'm out of the selective service zone now. I think it ends at 35.
Oh,
so
good.
I made it out of the draft, baby.
Yeah. Fuck you.
I'm too. I just too flat-footed, too asthmatic.
That's lucky, man. But yes, we actually. Why don't we hear that commercial and also get a fun little gag about black exploitation horror films? Which let me tell you guys, if you haven't watched it, there's a really good documentary. The Shudder, I think the name of that channel is.
Yeah, Shudder.
They put out called Horror Noir, a Black History of Horror. It's really good. They talk to the real African-American people who made all these horror films. They got all the experts. It is really, really good.
There is a better version of this joke in a later episode. It has Dana Gould stink all over it. It's the movie Blackula meets Black Dracula.
Oh, I got to see that one. I forgot that joke.
Next on Exploitation Theater, Blackula, followed by Blackenstein, and the Blunch Black of Bloat Your Blame.
Woo! Funky.
But first, this word.
Daybreak. Jakarta. The proud men and women of the Navy are fighting for freedom. But you're in Lubbock, Texas, hosing stains off a monument. You're in the Naval Reserve, America's 17th line of defense between the Mississippi National Guard and the League of Women Voters. After basic training, you'll only have to work 1 weekend a month. And most of that time, you're drunk off your ass.
Lisa, I've taken a lot from this country. Maybe it's time I gave something back.
Are you thinking of joining the Naval Reserve?
Would you be proud of me?
Sort of.
Then I'll do it.
What is
inconsistent with what Lisa says later, of course.
Yeah. Lisa just exists in this episode to just comment snidely on the plot.
Yeah.
There's not a lot going on with her.
No, they're pretty uninterested in Lisa in this episode.
But yeah, like all the guys in that commercial are just, their butt cracks are showing, they're very large.
They're basically all Barney.
Yeah, they are. They all have Barney's body type.
They're like, if Barney were the Beagle Boys, it's a different version of Barney. We've been watching DuckTales lately.
We have been.
That's
for work and a little fun.
That all that stuff is so crystallized in time of just that's what the feeling was of military service under Clinton, that we were not doing enough, apparently.
Yeah, that whole thing about like 1 weekend a year or whatever, or 1 weekend a month, right? That was part of the scam, like my high school buddies would talk about. Like, it's all 1 weekend, that's all you got to do. And it was like, ROTC, is that like some army thing too?
That's so you can enter as an officer
Okay.
after. I had an ROTC friend who I'm actually going to talk about in just a second too. But
Cool.
yes, that's ROTC is a different version of the military invading our schools. But
Yeah.
it's
like the fun. It's like for being a military cheerleader, right?
Yes, yeah, but it's like, well, Boy Scouts isn't militaristic enough for me. I need to. But also, it is if you plan to go later into it. This is what my friend did. I had a friend who skipped ROTC because he had a hookup from his dad that he was just going to go straight to officer anyway or the officer training into the Navy thanks to his dad. So he's like, I don't even have to do ROTC like these losers, which that seems like a flaw in our military there.
Young John McCain.
I thought of John McCain a couple times this episode. I
think of John McCain constantly, the old maverick.
He's so inspiring in a sense of bipartisanship. No, but the Don't Ask, Don't Tell bit in the next thing where Homer signs up, in 1998, that did not feel very fresh. Now it's actually, it's the trans people's turn on to be attacked.
I guess it was instituted in 1994, which when this episode was written, it was fairly new. But we have Just Stamp the Ticket guy.
Oh,
in a rare speaking role.
That
It's
was
him.
Well, so this bit here with Don't Ask, Don't Tell there was more punishment for telling than there was for asking, which this guy's afraid of it then, but you could get punished. This isn't inaccurate. And my same, that Navy friend I was just talking about, he did tell me a story of having to execute a Don't Ask, Don't Tell thing in like 2003 or something, where they found out some Navy guy under him was like gay, and he was in a actually not, he's queer, but he was in a relationship with another man, but also married to another female officer in the Navy too. And he was like, the guy was doing something to scam the military and steal stuff, but they just discharged him over gayness. And that guy sounds pretty awesome to me. A guy in a poly relationship who stole from the Navy, that's a pretty cool guy. But yes, that's, I've heard it executed. Now that's so in the past, and it's just trans people being attacked now. Wonderful. I do like his reaction of like, I am not listening, blah, blah, blah. That's cute.
Yeah, that's like a fine scene with like a joke, you know what I mean? And it was like fit with the plot and everything like that. I thought that was a perfectly fine scene.
But what about clapper jokes?
No.
Those are pretty funny.
That was crusty in 1995.
The clapper. I will say I rewatched the original clapper commercial. The first scene is a couple in bed, so they're at least being specific with their reference to the clapper.
Clapper jokes were the head-on jokes of their time.
Actually, if you listeners are too young to remember the iconic clapper commercial,
here we go.
Here's the song.
Clap on, clap off.
For places hard to reach, the clapper makes it easy. Plus,
that is not the classic commercial, Henry.
Oh, it's not?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, what did I fail at?
The music is different in the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's clap on, clap off, the clapper.
All right.
Clap on, clap off, clap on, clap off. Clapper.
That might come at the end of the commercial.
That's some messed up remix. That's not my childhood.
I'm sorry.
But what is more hacky, a clapper joke or I fallen and I can't get up joke?
I think fallen. I think.
But Where's the Beef? I think Where's the Beef was a pretty bad one around that time.
I think
by 98, Where's the Beef would come back around again is like as a fun reference.
Comedically, an old woman falling down is the better premise.
Well, now clapper technology has improved so much that the Amazon can just listen to you and share with the government. Like, that's how good it's getting.
Oh, you have one of those?
Yeah, we do. They're listening to us right now. But
oh boy,
look,
I can't. I had one. I can't do it anymore. I had to unplug it.
It feels wrong.
We put a boom mic in our houses to listen to us for the Amazon. Amazon company. It's like odd.
It's an odd choice. It's like if Winston Smith had bought the TV that watches him. If I maybe hack and make a 1984 reference about our current day. They all decide they're going to join up together in this next clip.
Well, guys, I won't be seeing you for a while. Where are you going? I've joined the Naval Reserve. Well, I'm not going to let anything happen to my best friend. I'm joining too.
Well, I'm not going to let anything happen to my two best customers. I'm joining too.
And although my religion strictly forbids military service, what the hey, I'm in too.
Gee, thanks, guys. This is just like the deer hunter.
The deer hunter? That reminds me. Didimo! I'm sorry, guys. We're shutting down for a while. Sorry.
I think you could have a Deer Hunter parody. What I don't like about the setup is just like, this reminds me of the Deer Hunter. The Deer Hunter? And then like, here's our parody. Like two characters said the name of the movie.
Yeah.
And then they open the door in the parodies. There's like, there could have been a more graceful way to go into that. I like the idea of that happening in his back room, but
that
just
is
like
Family Guy style laziness of saying it twice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's not even like it's like the Deer Hunter. Hey, remember that time we were in the Deer Hunter? I feel like they would even like not even do that obvious.
Yeah.
Or like Peter'd have to go down to the basement to get like a can of something, and the Deer Hunter scene would be happening. Maybe.
Right, it would just be unrelated.
Yeah.
Because of these jokes, I did watch the Deer Hunter around this time as a kid, and it seemed like a fine, great movie. Though I completely reconsidered that movie after reading that book, Easy Rider Raising Bulls.
Yeah.
Because they bring up no, it's an insanely racist movie that turns every Vietnamese person into a creature. Like they're all monsters, which is a weird ass thing to do to the people we fucking invaded and bombed.
Right. Yeah, the people having like a civil war that we decided to join up in and fuck them up.
That's the problem with the Deer Hunter. Recontextualizes it to say well, it's actually a thing that happened to us. Like, no, we happened to them. Well, that's the kind of bullshit that makes a John McCain possible. Like that. I hate that. I hate it actually. Though in that clip too, there was, I thought, clever bad writing in that they recognize that they don't want Homer to be alone on the sub. They want other recognizable characters there. So they intentionally write a scene that makes no sense why the three of them would join, including Apu, directly highlighting why him as a Hindu would never join in armed services.
Yeah.
He's like, but I'm going to be there.
They do a lot of work to show you Apu will be there, but Henry, you're pointing out later in the show, he only appears for one joke. I think they had bigger plans for Apu on the submarine.
I think so, yes.
I swear to God, all of this thus far, the whole episode, if you want to do the episode with all the Simpsons characters on like a submarine, why don't you just have it be like Homer to Bart, like there was a time when we all were in the army together. You know what I mean? Like, why is this not like a flashback? Why have we spent like 15 minutes of the episode now, like getting all the pieces in place so that all the Simpsons characters can like join the Navy? It's bizarre. It's bizarre.
You know what that is? That is a time saver to just. But then again, if you're saving time, this episode actually needs more fillers. So that would be against the but yeah. So Homer signs up. That's where Lisa says she shits all over the military-industrial complex, which I do like that guy.
Yeah,
I do too. But it's like, but again, I was like, in the early scene where Lisa's like, maybe I would be proud of you. I was like, that's not Lisa. And then this scene, she is Lisa, and I'm like, so why'd you have that other line? Oh well, whatever.
Yeah. Because who cares?
Who cares, I guess, is the answer. Who gives a shit?
Yeah. I do like Homer's bad dad line of like, but only if you're good, even if you're not. That's good.
I also like him getting fooled by Bart saying that Flanders brought home military missile casings.
Yeah. And then they go off to basic training, which on the commentary, they are sometimes negative about this episode too. It's just Gina Reese on the commentary. And they bring up how like everybody loves these army movies that have basic training in them, but no one remembers anything that happens after the basic training in like Stripes or Private Benjamin or Full Metal Jacket. Everybody, once basic training is over, your mind thinks, well, the film is over, and you forget everything that happens after.
I think I watched Stripes for the first time maybe 5 years ago. I didn't know there was more movie after that basic training, and it's not very good.
No, it's it really kind of falls apart after that. I believe they invade Russia in that too, just like Homer does, actually. Or a Russian-style place place where like Count Floyd is playing a Russian
That's
guard
right.
in it.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Sorry, that actor's name is
Joe Flaherty.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Also, when they go to basic training, it's like they have a Full Metal Jacket head shaving scene, but they also have an officer and a gentleman drill sergeant type thing.
Yeah.
It's like, again, it's like you're going to do all this Crimson Tide stuff. You don't have to do everything as a film reference.
Is Homer getting in bed with Marge from An Officer and a Gentleman? It's gotta be
Actually,
from
it's
something.
from the Marines commercial. The few that like we're looking for a few good men. It's all the posing. Remember the commercial? Like it's a guy. I didn't collect it because it's all visual.
Yeah.
It is a sword being crafted and saying like the sword is awesome. And then they give the sword to the Marine guy. He puts it in the sheath. Then it shows his hand move in the specific way a Marine does. And then putting the sword up to his ear.
Okay.
And all that. Like that was it was like 1993 military
Okay,
propaganda.
I don't recall that. I remember like maybe around 9/11 there was a military ad where it's like you're fighting a dragon, but you're
Yes.
actually in the army.
Yeah, it's similar in spirit, but the posing is actually from a Marines commercial, which
Interesting,
Homer's in the
okay.
Navy. They shouldn't do Marines. Anyway, yes, as Homer gets his training, I do like him doing a bad Columbo impression. I think
That's good. He
fun.
says he does a fair.
Yes.
Even he points out it's fair.
Well, let's judge in this next clip here.
Tuck in that shirt. Shine those shoes, mister. Oh, for the love of...
A seagull took my sailor hat.
All right, Simpson. I don't like you, and you don't like me.
I like you.
All right. You like me, but I don't like you.
Maybe you would like me if you got to know me.
What are you, a comedian?
Well, I'm no Margaret Cho, but I do a pretty fair Columbo impression. One more thing. What? I should get a glass of water.
So a slam on Margaret Cho there.
I like that joke actually. Like that whole
Homer's
thing.
a Margaret Cho fan. It's funny because she had a show on ABC the same time Al Jean and Mike Reese did.
Oh, that's right.
All
yes.
American Girl.
Yeah.
I watched all of it.
I just like that it's Homer could say any stand-up and that I feel like it's a joke that Homer is hip enough to know who Margaret Cho is. Like not saying that whether they find her funny or not, but just that he knows her of existence. I like Dan Castellaneta, who is good at impressions, playing Homer being bad at an impression. That's funny.
Even doing the eye thing was nice.
Another continuity check mark from Henry here. He is wearing the foam dome that was the product in Saturdays of Thunder that he owned from season 3. So they shave off his head, Full Metal Jacket style. I do like the dot in design. It feels like the dots on Homer's head from the stubble are where his hair on the back his head would connect.
I found that funny. I like that actually. I like buzz cut Homer where he just has I guess where his hair goes in and out. I guess his hair, from looking at that, it's almost like it's like thread or something like that.
Yeah.
It's in and out of his head.
Sometimes they say he has only 3 hairs. Like he said, may my head be plucked of all but 3 hairs, which would imply that the thing on the back of his head is 1 hair. And they've done that joke before, but it's like I always read it as just a Jason Alexander style collection of hair at the back. And yeah, Homer just walks away, which I feel like that's a failure by his drill instructor to just let him walk away like that. And then Homer kills a bunch of people. He kills a lot of people in this episode.
He really does.
He fails to tie up that ship, which you would assume would cause a dishonorable discharge right there. But then again, John McCain crashed a lot of planes. So, who's to say? And you even hear the screams of the people as it falls over the waterfall.
True. It was the USS New Jersey, which I think is another classic New Jersey slam.
Nice slam on
from
Jersey
those New York elites in LA.
I also think it's really weird that they go to commercial on the World War I hats falling on people. It's like, it's not your strongest joke to go to commercial on.
It's an okay joke. I wish they would have cut the joke before the hats fall. Because the hats fall, they don't hurt anybody. The people just go, uh-oh, and that's it. I like the idea of them throwing their spiky hats in the air.
Then they let you think about what that will mean when it flies up.
Right.
In the air.
I actually, I was watching this episode on a service that needed some buffering, and I'll tell you what, at that scene where they threw up the hats, it needed to buffer right at that moment, and so I waited with anticipation to see the funny thing of them all getting spiked, but it does really weirdly cut to black and then just let you hear them all yell.
And then we come back to commercial. We have a rather short B story here.
Yeah.
But earrings on boy jokes also felt kind of clunky, passe in 1998.
Yeah,
too,
there's
I
no
think.
real twist on it either. Just I'm sure there was a Cosby Show. I know for a fact there was a Cosby Show episode about Theo getting an earring.
We don't talk about that.
It was a show that existed. I'm sorry,
Yes.
but were any of us earring havers? I was at one point in my life.
Oh, really?
Yes.
No, I never had the guts to wear one. It wasn't my style.
I still have the holes in my head for it, but I think it was just, it was conformist rebellion, as Lisa said, because I was in Catholic school where you had to tuck in your shirt, have a haircut, and not have your ears pierced. So the second I graduated, I untucked my shirt, grew my hair out, and pierced my ear. So there you have it.
Yeah.
I never had a pierce. I never had a pierced ear, but I got no problem with it. I don't know that Bart looked good with the earring, I think.
I also am glad they resisted any joke about the gay ear being pierced on.
Right.
They could have done that with Milhouse having his ear pierced on the right side, which is, as we deconstructed in Lisa's Rival episode, it is the right side that's gay and the left isn't, though that was the locker room rule at the time anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes you gay, actually, to put it on the wrong ear.
The second you do, you're like, I need cock. I do like the gag of, we're talking about passe jokes. They were ahead of their time on best friend thinks mom is hot jokes.
Yeah.
These now
this is pre-American Pie, so this is before the advent even of the word MILF.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I do like Milhouse screaming, "I think she's hot."
He can't hold it in.
Yeah.
He's like he thinks about it all the time. I like that gag. But also, as we're talking about things being passe, they do a joke about how old the fucking show is and how passe they've become.
21 years ago.
Yes, yeah. But let's all sing along to the Michael Jackson written hit, "The Bartman."
Hey, Bart, check out my new earring. Pretty cool, huh? Milhouse, my mom wears earrings. Do you think she's cool? No, I think she's hot. Sorry, it just slipped out. Hey, look! Milhouse has an earring! Milhouse! Hey, if you want cool, check this out. Everybody, if you can do the Bartman, shake your body, turn it out. If you can't, do the Bartman, yeah. That is so 1991.
Good catty Ralph.
Yeah. Which, again, we've been saying, when you're watching this episode, you can say many times, that's so 1991 about a lot of jokes in here.
And he was doing the Bartman, although that episode,
well,
that
the hip
video,
thrust is not in the, I don't know.
I guess so, but I was going to point out in that song, they don't actually tell you how to do the Bartman. Shake your body is basically all the instructions they give you.
Forth from side to side.
Yeah, that's it.
Well,
that's most dances.
Yeah, it's very open of saying like, shake your body in tune with the music, which is like anybody can do that.
Yeah, I mean,
that could literally be a description of dancing, just of dancing in general.
Doing the Mario had more instructions than doing the Bartman.
Yeah, and the Macarena obviously is just solely an instructional song. And I appreciate that.
But then it also goes to Milhouse getting permission to have his earring, which does feel like Gene and Reese in the 90s fell into a bit of PC culture out of control type jokes, which that feels...
He still does.
Yes. Yeah, yep. Which, 30 years later, even better. But this gag here about like, oh, well, you're not allowed to unless you're of gypsy abstraction. And then like, wow, they even have a rule in the school book about being a vampire. How PC can you get? That's how I read that gag.
I do like that vampires exist in this world, though, and
That's
Skinner's
funny,
aware of
yeah.
it.
I do like that. Though, I'll say it later, but this should be treated as canonical as the Mary Poppins episode. Like this, for reasons that come later in here.
Sure.
But yes, then Homer is about to fuck Marge very happily. I like when they have a good sex life. I do like that. But that's the Marine parody commercial.
Okay.
Look up 1993. We're looking for a few, like the Few, the Proud, the Marines. That's better propaganda than like we're looking for a few good men. That's was the thing in that commercial. They then head to the Navy vets place, and we get stories about. This also feels like a very conservative string of hating on Vietnam vets and thinking they suck.
Yeah, the Return of the Veterans of Unpopular Warriors
Yes,
Hall.
yeah.
2-story minimum.
Yeah, and then Gene and Reese also love their Kennedy gags. They really enjoy that. The Ich bin ein Berliner. They even on the commentary they talk about how like Grandpa has been in World War II, was in every part of the service, was undercover and kissed Hitler. Like he did all these things. But you should just not believe any story Abe tells. That's the real truth there. And then we get our first of 2 dead guest stars in this episode. episode, which means it's time to play that old death jingle.
Ooh.
Death stalks you at every turn. Ah, there it is, death.
Bob Denver.
Gilligan himself in this
Yeah,
episode.
one of the good Bobs, like me. From what I read about him and learned about him, he was pretty cool.
Wasn't he a big stoner?
He
Wasn't
was.
that revealed after his death?
Yeah. But yes, he did play Gilligan, and I watched all of Gilligan's Island several times as a kid, and I understood all the stand-up comedy jokes about Gilligan's Island in the late 80s, early 90s.
Around when this episode airs, when I learned that how the Gilligan's Island group, like most people who started things then, got really fucked out of residuals and didn't make $1 off of reruns, which is the only way Gilligan's Island made money. So that's also why he would probably keep dressing up as Gilligan after he would probably not want to, because he wasn't getting that residual money.
When I went to elementary school, the like piano player for all the like school plays was this guy George Wiley, who did the theme song to Gilligan's Island.
Whoa!
So I actually do think he probably made a shit ton of money from that. I was gonna like make a joke about how he also like was like working for, but I actually think even back then he probably made more money on residuals from the theme song than the actors did for appearing on the show.
I would 1000% bet that. Yeah, the songwriting rights seemed to be figured out then. I only base that on the anecdotal story of Johnny Carson wanting songwriting rights on the Tonight Show theme,
right?
So he could keep making money. So if he was thinking about that back then you feel like the Gilligan's guy would be getting the money for that,
right?
Too.
Yeah, they all knew that that's where the money is at.
The sweetest plum, as Krusty would say.
Wrote the words to the theme song of Two and a Half Men.
What?
I didn't know that.
And he does. And you know what? Do you remember what those words are?
Men, manly men. Is that basically
he
it?
He wrote the lyrics to that, and so now he gets part of the residuals for the theme song to Two and a Half Men.
Quite a scam. What a great band. Wow, that's though he wrote the Ninja Turtles theme song, which is also just Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
There's a few more lyrics.
They're like, what do you think? And he just delivers the title of the show, like copy pasted like 30 times.
Well, I did not know he did that for Two and a Half Men, though. Why isn't there enough money at some points, Lori?
Never enough.
Without Bob Denver, we would not have Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, because he played Maynard G. Krebs on the Many Lives of Dobie Gillis. What was that again?
Many Loves.
I was thinking of Garfield, like I always am. But yes, Shaggy based on Maynard G. Krebs, Bob Denver.
Bob Denver was a funny actor. He was really good at the stuff he had to do. I think Gene and Reese learned they first worked with him on the season 2 episode of Alf that was a Gilligan reunion of all the not dead people in '87. So, Bob Denver no longer with us though. But we can still hear him in audio form right now.
And another thing. When people come up to me and say, "Hey, little buddy," and hit me over the head with a hat, that's not funny. That hurts. Stop laughing at me.
You know, Marge, joining the reserves was the best thing I ever did. I feel good about myself, I'm helping my country, and later I'm going to get Gilligan's autograph.
I'm so proud of you, homie.
Then I'll whomp him with my hat.
Apparently, this USO show that Bob Denver does is just him complaining about how he's treated, because it cuts to him and he says, "And another thing."
Well, the joke too is that they get in the reserves they get the worst people. So Bob Denver is also participating in a joke about how he sucks and would be a bad person to book.
And he's there with Cindy Williams, who is Shirley on Laverne and Shirley.
Yeah.
So the other show is Bob Hope and Cindy Crawford.
She's dead too, isn't she?
Is she dead?
I thought they're both. When Penny Marshall died, I thought that also that people were talking about how they're like reunited in heaven now. You know what? Well,
I don't think she is. They don't have like they don't have like a life tether to the yeah. So she's still alive. 71.
Oh, good.
Yes.
All right, then you know what? I'm going to play our anti-death jingle to protect Cindy Williams here.
Buzzards, I ain't dead yet.
Then Bart goes to get his ears pierced, and on the commentary, they are, I think, rightly proud that they were doing Starbucks jokes before a lot of people were doing them.
Especially in 1995 when this joke was written. Jack, where did you grow up? I don't remember.
I grew up here in LA.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Valley.
So Starbucks were there basically very, very early in your life, right?
I don't think I remember a time when Starbucks didn't exist.
Wow, okay.
Like the internet, I'm like, it may have not been there for some times in my life, but I was not cognizant.
Interesting. Yeah. So the first Starbucks that opened up in my town was actually inside of a Barnes and Noble. It was like the Trojan Horse, and that was '96. So I was only aware of Starbucks in '96, but I didn't know it was a big deal until Show started talking about it. And I'm stealing this comment from Amber Lee Frost from Chapo Trap House, where there are so many people who they're kind of right when they're like, Starbucks, they burn their beans, their coffee's not so great. Amber pointed out on a podcast once, like, they brought good coffee to places that didn't know coffee could be good, and we should respect them for that. Not Howard Schultz, of course, but
No.
I didn't know I enjoyed coffee until Starbucks entered my life. Like, I can drink this? I mean, have you
It's not
tried
a gray mess that comes from a brick.
Have you tried the
Interesting.
parents? Have you tried the coffee your parents drink, like Maxwell House and Folgers? It tastes like it was strained through a mummy. It tastes like shit compared to Starbucks. So yes, we can at least credit Starbucks for that.
I mean, they raised the bar of American
Yeah.
coffee, sure, yeah. In my area of Orange Park, Florida, where I spent 10 to 25, I didn't see a Starbucks, I feel like, until like 2002 or 2003. And when they showed up, my reaction was like, oh, the thing from TV that everybody jokes about. I guess we're finally getting them here.
I remember working at this will end soon, by the way. This Starbucks chef. I remember in 2007, a decade after this episode, I was working a shitty, terrible temping job in the basement of a bank with just miserable people. And instead of just like going up to the convenience store and buying lottery tickets and scratching them off at my desk during my lunch break like everybody else, I was like, I'm going to go out for lunch. So I went out. On the way back, I got a Starbucks at the drive-thru. I brought back Starbucks. They're like, oh, Mr. Big Shot with the Starbucks. Just like, I just paid $2 for a black coffee.
Yeah, I think Hollywood can't exist without Starbucks now. The joke about it being everywhere, when I went to Seattle for the first time, I was like, oh, that's not a joke. It is every single thing.
And my mom gets me Starbucks gift cards like all the time because I live in California.
Oh, sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, they're every fucking where here too. And that I remember that being the case like since I was a kid.
Now I think, and if it's not Starbucks, it's just another thing that is Starbucks, like Pete's
Right.
Coffee or something. Like
Pete's or one of the ones that's owned by the Nazis that own Krispy Kreme or something.
Oh, yeah.
Or Michael Avenatti. Michael Avenatti owned Tully's for a little while.
What?
That was like in all the he owned Tully's and he like stopped paying taxes on all the employees withheld taxes and just kept it for himself. But yeah, Michael
Wow.
Avenatti owned Tully's for a while.
I did not know that, man. I've not been that shocked since learning that Steve Bannon owns a piece of Seinfeld.
For some reason, Tully's is all over Japan more than Starbucks is. I don't know why. At least in Tokyo.
Yeah, it was in one of those indictments. He bought Tully's and then stopped paying the taxes.
When Bart comes back with his ear pierced with a cup of coffee, as it turned into a Starbucks as his ears were being pierced, which I like that. That was clever. But then when he gets home, that's when Lisa has her, again, very good pronouncement and just like, in a conformist sort of way, it's very rebellious. Like, I like that. And I also like that Homer starts talking about how he's a disgrace to the proud naval tradition of his family. When Bart goes to school, everybody's got their ear pierced. Now, I do believe when I was in elementary school up to 1994, and even in middle school, like, boys couldn't have pierced ears. Like, it was against the rule, though I grew up in a rather conservative suburb of Florida.
When people get their ears pierced, young people, at least in the 90s, I felt like it was very gendered, in which the girls, of course, would have like sparkly earrings or dangly earrings, and the boys would always have the standard I'm not gay, like little ring, little hoop. Or eventually in the late 90s, the plugs, like the gauges or whatever.
Gauges.
I don't care for those, by the way, but you can do that to yourself if you want.
Hey, whatever you want to do with those earlobes is fine by me.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what anyone does with their ears, to be honest with you. Cut them off.
Who needs them?
Honestly,
Do a fucking Van Gogh. He was cool.
You could hear stuff with just the holes in your head, like, I think. But that is what we just found the next level of gauges after that.
Cutting off your ears.
Ralph saying he has 2 owies with his earring. And also there's no real end to Bart's. That should make him go like, oh, I don't want an earring after he sees everybody has one. But there's kind of no follow-up to that.
He's still happy to have his earring.
Yeah. And then we get a pre-George W. Bush nuclear gag.
Yeah.
Too. On friend of the show who's done the Adam H. Johnson, he from Citations Needed podcast, a great podcast, he talks about how like he grew up in Texas and it was an accepted, he still says it that way. And he's like, it's not a mispronunciation, it's a different pronunciation.
It's just regional. It's regional.
Yeah, I think linguists would even say that. And I mean, that was just like the one gotcha for George W. Bush. It's like there are bigger fish to fry than him saying a word wrong.
He's stupid. He said the word wrong. That's why he's bad and dumb.
It was the Orange Man Tiny Hands of its time. This, as we're recording this, it's about a month ago this time, but that article that Jack, you've on Jack AM interviewed the writer of it, that was really great.
Miles Klee. Miles
Klee is our, I'm just going to cut
They spell and pronounce their names differently.
Miles, damn, now I have to keep it in because that was a funny reference.
I'm sorry.
Right. Anyway, yeah, his article about the stagnation at late night stand-up, a comedy, which you're an expert in as well, like that. The nuclear thing just made me think back to it too, of just like how also that the light mockery of W, I think, is partially to blame for why the fucking war criminals of the Bush administration are just on TV now. And
he's cute. He's cute and funny the way that he's
Michelle
like
Obama
the
hugged him.
President or whatever.
Yeah,
I remember today that there was an hour-long like movie where Johnny Depp played Trump, and we all forgot about it.
Yeah.
The Funny or Die movie. That was like a big Funny or Die thing. By the way, the big flaw with that, I think, is that like they're in the middle of a presidential, primary. Like the news is moving so fast every single day. Your thing is what you're going to do is double down on a big, huge, long-form piece of content that will exist for one day. And that's what you're going to make your website's like whole prerogative for, months at that point.
Well, hey, the proof is in the pudding with how successful it still is today.
We got him.
But yeah, so Homer gets assigned to a nuclear sub, which I would think after he destroyed the USS New Jersey, he probably shouldn't be put on there. But once he gets assigned to
he also got promoted because of like what he was asking questions or something like that, or making jokes or something.
Yeah, that's also because Captain Tennille, we'll meet in a sec, he's insane. Like that's also why.
Sure.
And then once the rain starts, this is the first Crimson Tide scene of the episode, because the plot of Crimson Tide actually feels more relevant today because it's about the reigniting of Russia versus America, and a Putin-style figure takes over Russia in the plot of it, and nuclear war might begin at any second. That's the whole argument on the boat, that Gene Hackman got half a transmission and he thinks it means we're at war now, launch our fucking nukes. And Denzel says it could mean we're not at war now and don't launch the nukes. And that's the whole argument, which is basically just the uber heightening of an argument with your dad about like how to fix the plumbing or something. That's how I read it. And I actually, I think it's a good movie with a really good cast of like James Gandolfini, Viggo Mortensen, Denzel, Gene Hackman. Like it's not a bad film to watch it with your father on Father's Day. But aborting the sub happens in the rain. And I did find out though that they didn't get Navy backing for like free subs and stuff to film it, because the Navy didn't like that it was about a mutiny on a sub, because they're like, this will make people think it could happen.
Oh.
So instead they had to like go to the French military and get one of their subs to film stuff. So despite it being propaganda for the Navy and only being nice to the Navy actually didn't even give them money for it. Unlike Top Gun, which Bruckheimer had produced 10 years previous. And then we also have a very Family Guy moment of remember Rock'em Sock'em Robots. This really brought back thought balloons into Simpsons for sure.
The can't we all just get along thing was from the LA riots.
Yeah. Also that.
They shouldn't stop it. Don't do that anymore.
Maybe don't do that joke anymore. No. I do like Homer's line of, well, when I was 10, I got Mayor's Pierce, but that was totally different. I like that dad logic there. That's funny.
It's very much like his I Like Stories speech.
But yes, time to play the death jingle for a second time.
Man.
I think a record second time.
This episode's a real graveyard.
But yes, for our second guest of the episode.
Death stalks you at every turn. There it is, death!
Rod Steiger died in 2002.
Mm-hmm. I guess he's most famous for On the Waterfront, where he plays Marlon Brando's brother, or he's, I believe, the guy who isn't Sidney Poitier in The Heat of the Night. He played a lot of like racist strongmen. That was kind of the box he got put into. And he's a real World War II vet too, so he kind of brings a real sense of the military to his roles, which makes him good for casting in this. He kind of feels like the previous generation's Michael Ironside, I think. Captain Tennille is not a funny joke. We talked before about it. I'm glad they only say his name once.
Yeah, at least they gave him a name.
Yeah, that's true. Some guest characters don't get names.
Very Family Guy.
Yeah.
But they would have belabored it a little bit more, I think.
He would have sung a Captain and Tennille song.
Yeah. In case you don't know, and let's not play it because it sucks. Love Will Keep Us Together. Yeah. They sung that song, Captain and Tennille.
Right.
It's maybe they wanted to put it in this episode, but they're like, you have the budget for the Village People or Captain and Tennille? Which are you going to spend it on?
We gotta take Village People.
Got to. But yes, well, let's hear old Rod in his premiere.
Attention on deck. Captain Tennille wishes to address you.
I'm a man of few words. And a question.
Is the poop deck really what I think it is?
I like the cut of your jib.
What's a jib?
Promote that man. The Navy has a fine sense of tradition. Whenever an American vessel leaves port, the crew sings this ancient sea chanty. A 1, a 2, a 3, a 4.
Then we have In the Navy.
Yes.
Yes. One thing before we start groaning, that little sting that you heard, that's not Simpsons-like. It's a take on the Hans Zimmer theme from Crimson Tide. It's what Kojima would take off to make all the Metal Gear music. Like Hans Zimmer-y stuff is very much that sort of militaristic.
In '95, that was very novel, the Hans Zimmer themes. But it was before he wrote every music for films now. That what's a jib line is more clever than I thought, because that is a naval term about a sail. A jib is part of a sail. So Homer saying what's a jib is him failing to know one of the most basic naval terms there is. So it's a little more clever than just him being stupid.
It's a nice exaggeration also, the way he likes Homer, like, I like you, you've got spunk, when Homer is just incompetent and gets everything wrong and is clearly not fit for this job.
So in the film, the posing is actually very similar to Crimson Tide too.
Really? Okay.
There's a scene of Gene Hackman is having a conversation with Denzel, which he's actually not that friendly to Denzel Washington's character in the film, but basically Homer and Rod Steiger are in the same position as Gene Hackman and Denzel in that scene, and they're talking about like, we're going to war, look at the surface one last time, and they're smoking cigars together, and even the scene where Gene Hackman throws his cigar into the ocean the same way Rod Steiger does it too. And
these are all just references we do every day about Crimson Tide.
And though in the movie, he doesn't say, we sing a song and then they sing a song together. But when the sub goes underwater, it starts to play the real naval hymn, Eternal Father Strong to Save. I was like, to all the sailors in the sea. It's,
So not Anchors Away or In the Navy.
No. It's a very like somber song about how brave our naval men are. Not in the Navy. An incredibly tired, lame song to use in 1998. I hate it. I hate this scene actually quite a lot.
They kill the Village People.
Yeah.
The only thing I think that makes it a little better is that like there's a shot of their various paraphernalia surfacing as if they're dead at the bottom of the ocean. With Smithers is dead.
They also miscolor the black guy, the black lead singer of Village People. The cop is an African American, and they make him yellow in this. Like so. Fuck, man, that's erasure on top of hackery.
Yeah. Well, you sure know a lot about the Village People, Henry.
It was just in '98. It was hacked. Like Wayne's World 2 did a Village People gag in like '94, and it was kind of getting old then. And then I really think like the nadir joke wise for me in this episode is Smithers. Also, and there's already 5 gay panic jokes in this episode. Like it's a lot.
Right. Oh yeah, we did miss Barney pinning up a picture of Homer.
Yeah.
In a swimsuit.
Yes, exactly. It's just like, and then to have Smithers there, which like they usually treat Smithers' gayness more respectfully than this when they joke about it. Instead of just like, well, who would be dancing with the fag group? Oh, it'd be Smithers.
They were just.
I can say that I'm gay.
It's true.
Listeners.
They just won an Emmy for Homer's phobia.
Yes.
And then they have a Village People joke.
Right. By the way, I just looked it up, and In the Navy came out in 1979. So this is now a nearly full 20 years after the song actually was released.
I mean, well, they actually even talk about on the commentary. Reese says that he tried to use YMCA in his Queer Duck movie like 8 years after this episode. And that's when the Village People were like, we're not a gay band anymore. We don't license it for this. We're a kids band.
Yeah, we're a children's band. Like they might be Giants or Weezer.
Yeah.
Right.
But yes, in your professional writing opinion, Jack, using a Village People song, how funny is that?
I just am like, it feels very, Xer. It feels very like Gen Xer kind of boomery kind of humor to me. It's never like been my thing. It's like I don't actually find anything funny about there having been a gay band. You know what I mean? It kind of feels like the thing here is that like it's like funny or novel that like gay people are singers kind of and like flamboyant, and I'm like, I don't know. In the world I grew up in, there have been a lot of flamboyant and some gay singers. It's not a novelty to me. They're not the only one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure there are historical reasons for this stereotype, but gayness is associated with the Navy a lot, and not just because of the Village People. I don't know what went into that.
There's seamen, and it's a bunch of men.
But a bunch of men get together in a lot of contexts,
and they're all fucking. That's
I guess. Whoa.
Yeah. I feel like they say it about the Army too, but I actually I do think that probably just the seamen thing and like the outfits. I don't know, but they used to say it about the Army and all of it. Yeah.
The connecting of dots is so easy there too. Of just like you already have the joke of all these men together, they're away from women.
I guess they're on the sea in an enclosed space.
Yeah, so you have the seamen jokes right there, and then the Village People, a gay band, makes a song about the Navy, which they in '79 they made up that song in the same. They did the song just like they did the YMCA song about how the YMCA is where you fuck, the Navy is where you fuck. That was the statement they were making. That
was
the working title for the song. The Navy is where you fuck.
Yeah, that was the name of the album, right? The Places We Fuck.
But
all the places.
To now see the kids sing YMCA all the time is very strange to me. Also, can you still get a good meal at the YMCA? I bet you don't. I bet you don't get a free meal.
I work out at the YMCA. It's expensive. It's like $70 a month.
Yeah.
You don't do whatever you feel there, do you?
No, I get out as soon as I can. It's full of old men's penises.
Homer then has a dinner with the captain and really impresses him because the captain is insane, which at least they make that clear of like, he has nitrogen bubbles in his brain. He has lost his mind. Like, that's kind of the point that Gene Hackman is like, Gene Hackman has too much power on the ship. They make a point at the end of the film that at the time, a nuclear sub captain can choose to fire the missiles on their own. And that after that, the president changed. They made it so only the president can do that. But yeah, they have a dinner scene together too, though it actually is where Gene Hackman starts to distrust Denzel Washington more, where he's like, you have some younger person's nuance to this stuff, Harvard boy. I say you just blow shit up. I'm simple. But
so it's the opposite of this scene.
Yeah, if they're trying to make it a Crimson Tide reference, they're going in the opposite direction. But yes, here's Homer taking the con.
Tell me, young man, what do you want out of life?
I want peace.
We all want peace, but it's always just out of reach. So, what's the best way to get peace?
With a knife.
Exactly. Not with the olive branch, but the bayonet. Oh, Simpson. You're like the son I never had.
And you're like the father I never visit.
Sir, I was running a diagnostic and there was an obstruction in torpedo tube number 1.
I'll take care of it. Oh, what the hell? Simpson, well, I'm gone. You're in command.
Me?
Him?
Yes. Maybe it's the salt water in my veins or the nitrogen bubbles in my brain, but I've taken a real shine to you.
And also, that's Pamela Hayden there playing the woman on the ship who doesn't have a name. That's apocryphal because the government did not allow women on naval subs until 2010.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
The fear was that if you're
flub.
if the understanding was in the Navy that you just have all these men in this remote location for days or weeks at a time, you don't want several women on there, and it was better to let women be disenfranchised than risk what the men would do.
So like TV writing.
Oh, come on.
I thought you were going there.
Find out that it's one of the secret places that all the gays go to have sex. You know what I mean? If a woman was there, they'd be able to report back.
They mess it up. They just kill the whole vibe. Well, actually, there's two women on this sub. Barney's mom, which I now realize from her outfit, like she's an officer. She's a high-level person in the Navy.
And she's referenced, but this is her like one appearance on the show.
I think so, yeah.
Barney has relatives that are identical to him. Like his uncle and his mother are just him in like different outfits.
But I do like Dan's voice on her is funny and lazy. I think
it's both.
And actually, here's in the very next scene, the captain, Tennille, crawls into a torpedo chute, and Homer kills him.
Ooh, comfy.
Homer, we got an enemy sub closing in fast. What do we do?
I don't know.
15 seconds to collision. We need a decision.
What would your captain say in my spot? Don't fire the torpedoes! Fire the torpedoes!
We've been hit by an officer.
If they're going to fire on us, we'll respond in kind. Fire! Not me, a torpedo!
So this is the first person we've truly seen Homer kill on screen. He's killed plenty of people off screen or unseen.
We do see his corpse. Yeah, that's true. He's just dead. Like they could do a joke later. He's like, it's amazing you survived or whatever, but he's just dead.
He's dead, yeah. So this part of the plot, I mean, it's a loose parody, but I just don't understand. Like, these are war games, so why? I mean, why would they take this seriously? Why would they not see it as an accident? Why do they have live ammo? I don't understand. Like, they don't really set up what these war games are, or the stakes, or what they have to do.
Yeah, that's
In fact,
true.
I don't really know what a war game really is in the context of submarines. Like, they're not firing paintballs at each other.
Based on Top Gun, it's you shoot fake missiles that just register like you were hit by a missile. And yet these are real explosives that go off when they fire at each other.
And these aren't like other countries that are attacking the subs.
Yeah.
They're just attacking, they think a sub that had a mutiny. I don't know.
Yeah, it just feels like kind of like they wanted to have a underwater fight scene and it didn't like fit in the plot where they were because America's not at war. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it just feels like kind of like a convenience.
Well, and this torpedo fight does happen in Crimson Tide. There is a sub fight. But for that, they actually, the first 5 minutes of Crimson Tide is just a fake CNN story on how Russia got taken over by separatists. So they at least explain why there is a Russian sub that they are shooting at each other.
Right.
Though I think that just feels like an attempt to spice up the action because there's enough intensity on the ship of just men arguing. But I think they're like, no, we need some explosions in here for like trailers at least. So it seems weird that in war games, the other ship fires explosive rounds with the intent to kill other people in a Navy sub. That the more you deconstruct it, the crazier it sounds. Even if Homer was given the con, I bet there are rules to take the con away from him after he kills the.
I would hope so.
Otherwise, the Navy needs to fix those rules if they can't.
Yeah, I feel very strongly about that. That the Navy needs to close those Homer Simpson loopholes.
And so Homer's the captain now. Everybody is very upset at that. Mo is his basically his Chekhov here, I guess.
Well, there is a Sulu.
Yeah, so he can't be Sulu, so he's Chekhov. It's a little Star Trek in here too. Also, when Homer wipes the sweat from his head, that's another very Crimson Tide moment. Like at least twice in the movie, Denzel Washington or Gene Hackman takes their hat off and wipes the sweat off.
Boy, they really thought Crimson Tide would stick with us, didn't they? It's like,
really
remember
did.
the classic sweat wiping scene from Crimson Tide? Like, I mean, I'm sure it's a good movie, but it's just not. It's not a thing you
they
reference.
Really thought
like,
there was going to be the people out there in the audience being like, "This doesn't like follow Crimson Tide."
I was there 3 years ago. I know.
I mean, credit to Milton Gray and his animation team that they bothered to do those things, like bothered with those specifics. We come back from the commercial break and they've lost all their power, or they're down to mood lighting, and that also lets them do more Crimson Tide references. Some of the most memorable stuff to me now in Crimson Tide is just the lighting when they're down to just, there's some really great scenes of like Gene Hackman is pointing a gun at Viggo Mortensen's head, and Viggo's face is like half red and half blue, and Gene Hackman's face is all red. It's like the lighting is, Bob, you had a term for it.
Modern YouTuber lighting.
Yes. Yeah.
I've heard people call that in positive terms bisexual lighting.
Yeah.
But that's not my place to say.
I was talking about that today on Jack AM. I never heard about this before, but bisexual lighting, I guess, is like purple, pink, and blue.
I've seen that from the buys in my Twitter feed. The first time I'd heard of that term was in that movie 2 years ago now, Atomic Blonde, the Charlize Theron movie, where her character is bi in the film. Like she has a male lover and a female lover, and then in a couple scenes she is lit in that way. And I think that led a lot of people to use that terminology of bisexual lighting, or that's at least the first time I'd seen that from the queers I follow on the Twitter. But yes, Homer is the captain now, and it's a perfect time to take a shot at Ross from Friends.
Damage report, Mr. Moe.
Sonar out. Navigation out. Radio out.
Enough of what's out. What's in?
Ice blended mocha drinks and David Schwimmer.
Yes, he is handsome in an ugly sort of way.
Captain, how are we supposed to get home with no equipment?
Don't worry, I've been working on it. Yes, carry the 2. All right, I can't waste any more time. People's lives are depending on me. Mr. Sulu, make a left.
Aye, aye, Captain. Setting course for Rigel 7. I mean home.
That's it. Left. Left. Steady as she goes. And second thought, go right.
So looks aside, we've said it before on this podcast, but Ross from Friends should be in jail.
The character is an awful person.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I've said this before, but look up the lawsuit about the writers of Friends and the writers' room there. I think they expressed a lot of those feelings through Ross's creepiness.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, have you not heard about this, Jack?
No, I haven't read about this. I'm going to look this up.
Yeah, look it up.
sometime.
It's a fun story about the locker room feel of a great writer's room.
I'm not a fan of this.
Yeah, I feel like I know a little bit about this. I've never really read that deeply about it though, but I shall.
It was a big settlement, right? Yeah.
No, I think they lost the case.
Oh, never mind then. I'm not a big fan of the Sulu joke. I hate the punch-up Simpsons jokes, but I feel like it could have been funnier if Homer just talking to like an Asian guy. He calls him Sulu, like, my name is Josh, or something like that. He's like got a white name. That's my punch-up for 1998.
I like that.
Yeah, it feels very criticky that he says Mr. Sulu and Sulu is there.
Yeah, in Critic, Jay Sherman just is around movie parodies and characters are around him.
They're very much in that mindset where it's just like the parodies happen, the characters can be there.
Right.
My
Sulu
theory
exists in Simpsons, and he worked with Homer.
My theory is that they thought they could get George Takei, and then they did Takei.
That's right.
And
Wait, no,
then
Takei.
Damn it! I said it right the first time, and I doubted myself. They thought that they could get him, and then they couldn't, and so well, we already animated it. Let's just go with it. I mean, it's look, there's other things to make fun of Ross for than just his looks. that feels a little below the belt. There's a good joke about Homer's bad drawings too. Then they invade Russia, which the Russian scare stuff actually feels realer now than the.
Well, sure, but that shit was funny as hell. Actually, I think that this whole sequence was like mega funny. It's actually maybe like I for the whole episode thought that I hadn't seen this episode before until this sequence at the UN through Russia. I was like, oh yeah, I guess I must have seen this episode because this is like a super funny part I remember.
I see that gift sarcastically whenever people are freaking out about Russiagate or Russian collusion, just like someone will post that gif in response.
Well, in the DSA type forum spaces, the Lenin Frankenstein meme is used non-ironically.
Yeah, that's true. It's like we want this.
The sequence was really funny.
Yeah, I like. Well, first before that, we do get this quick clip of the news story on Homer's treasonous acts.
Well, sir, treason season started early this year as a nuclear sub was hijacked by local man Homer Simpson.
Oh my God! I told him that photo would come back to haunt him.
Could Homer Simpson be a communist? His father spoke out on his behalf.
My Homer is not a communist. He may be a liar, a pig, an idiot, a communist, but he is not a porn star.
And they just hold on him just a little extra long, which I like that.
He does a little blink. They stay on him for another blink.
Again, Lisa commenting on like just snidely about the plot, like why did he take that picture?
Yes,
Lisa's just like a little sourpuss in this episode.
I like a good file photo guy.
Yeah.
That's fun. And then Homer,
it's like doing the Cossack dance.
I like a joke that implies more story to it. Like, why did Homer take that photo? And what caused this? Abe not doing him any favors and forgetting what he's even talking about in the middle of his speech. I like that.
And saving Sherry but not Terry. It's a fun little joke. It's like for some reason they brought her up to the stage to say she will die.
That's a really great joke, yeah. This stuff is some of the funniest, and I think meme-wise, of lasting impact. The rebirth of the Soviet Union is the most long-lasting.
For sure.
Show, yeah. Actually,
must crush capitalism.
Yes, well, let's give it a listen.
The Soviet Union will be pleased to offer amnesty to your wayward vassal.
The Soviet Union? I thought you guys broke up.
Yes, that's what we wanted you to think.
Must crush capitalism.
Children, I'll be frank. In the event of nuclear war, we can only save our best and brightest. Therefore, space in the fallout shelter will be reserved for Lisa Simpson, Martin Prince, our championship kickball team, and Sherry, but not Terry.
That's a good. I like that joke.
Yeah, I like that.
No, that whole sequence is great. I think Jen Kirkman actually believes that part though. About the USSR.
I would widen it out. Actually, the sequence like right before they go into the UN, that was a funny joke too. When they cut to the UN building and it's like a hillbilly like selling like groceries side of the road, and he's like, over there. I was like, that's a very funny joke too.
Yeah, that's a good joke too. Yeah, it was more visual. I should have included that one. But
I'm not saying you should have included it. I was just saying that's another. I wanted to point out another time when I thought the episode was funny.
They get a lot of good stuff out of the UN, though. Again, this is the reason I say this episode is as non-canon as Sherry Bobbins, because the USSR now re-exists.
That's
in
true.
The world of the Simpsons.
I guess I didn't think about the joke that much. And I overthink everything. I didn't overthink that. It's just like, they're back.
Yeah, they exist again, and the village people are dead as well.
Oh my god!
I don't know. Again, I'm make this like a dream or something. It's so easy to like not have the first 15 minutes of this show being like intricately setting up how this can exist in the universe, and then this fucking Soviet Union exists again.
Yes, yeah.
There's no American scandal about the Navy attacking its own ships.
Yeah. Well, that's also this whole Russia thing. That's not what happens in Crimson Tide. But I've got to thank them for must crush capitalism in a non-ironic way. Thank you, guys.
The whole thing is really funny. Like the parade, turning into tanks is really, really funny. All the flags unfolding. It's great. It's a funny idea and sequence.
That they have been hiding those things within their parades all these years to just get the order.
It took that guy saying, I thought you guys broke up. And then that's what launches the return of the Soviet Union, someone questioning it.
Yeah, it's like it does that almost does qualify as like a Family Guy-ish joke, but it's done so well and smartly that I don't want to, classify it like that.
We go back to the ship. There's a leak in there in the hull. Barney has a very vaudeville gag of not knowing what water is. And he talks about the pinhole leak. So this moment kind of isn't in Crimson Tide. There's this is just the Crimson Tide report now, but so there is a bit where the hull is leaking and Denzel Washington has to, I don't remember his character name, he's just Denzel. He gives the order to those guys aren't going to be able to be saved. Lock them up so they can drown, because otherwise the water will spread to the entire sub, and that makes everybody on the sub hate him because he chooses to kill those guys. That's the only leak in the film. Oppositely, Denzel Washington, who is the Homer equivalent in this episode, he does save people in a fire, so it's kind of putting the fire and the leak together from Crimson Tide and its plotting. Though Homer swimming under the water to plug the leak, feels like it's from a different movie. But it's so
the Poseidon Adventure or something.
Right? Yeah. Maybe that's it.
I do like how he has to swim. He doesn't have to swim, but he does swim.
Yes.
The water, he can just float above the water.
That's a good joke.
Yeah. But he still wants to go under to make it dramatic.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, they do cheat because when he goes underwater, when he goes under to the lower level, the water's at the top where the ladder is. But when he goes down, it's he can still float around, but whatever. It's a fun joke.
It's a fun joke, yeah. I didn't laugh too hard at I'm with Admiral Stupid as a t-shirt. Not that fun. But I do like that in Moe's dreams, as he's thinking of his cat, even then he gets angry. He can't relax. He's still that mad. And then there's the only Apu joke about how much he loves his malfunctioning cigarette machine, which in 98, I feel like those were, I guess you'd still find them. But
I do like the very shrewd Apu, though.
Yes.
It's like, don't ever change.
Apu jokes that are about him being a cheap guy who rips people off. That's better than going to the Indian category for jokes. I prefer those. And but that's the only reason they have Apu there, seemingly, because they do one joke just for that. I mean, I guess it's to make you care more. If you're like, oh, not Apu, he's in danger. Like,
no.
But who's watching this worried that anybody's going to die?
Who's watching the Quickie Marts? As Marge would say. Who's minding the Quickie Mart?
But yes, then Homer comes up. He calls him Mr. Moe, which, okay, so now I see that as another gay joke. As like to the Al Jean and Mike Reese's generation, calling someone a Moe was calling them a homo. So I didn't catch that until now that could be why Moe Sislak is mad he's being called Mr. Moe.
It also feels like a Mutiny on the Bounty reference, because like Mr. Christian or whatever, like you call Navy guys Mr. for some reason. I don't know.
Crimson Tide, they're calling everybody Mr.
Okay, is that a Navy thing? Mr. is like a Navy title? I've risen to the rank of Mr.
It's just about respect, I guess, on the vessel. Like Mr. Blank, tell Mr.
I think the Navy ranks are Mr., Doctor, and I don't know,
Captain Crunch.
Captain Crunch. That's the man at the top. But yes, Homer then decides now is the time to resurface, just very shrug. Well, I guess the stories, we've only got a few minutes left, so let's put the sub up again, which there's no plot reason to do that when he does it, but whatever.
There's no plot reason that they stop trying to kill him either.
Yep, yeah, no, there's no point to it, but Homer does plug the pinhole leak with the earring, so give them credit that the B story connected with the A story. That doesn't always happen in their plotting. They brought that together in a laziest way. Also, I would think the pressure of the ocean would shove that out the second you tried to put it in there, but I'm no scientist. But yes, Homer surfaces back up, and this honestly felt like it could have been the end of the episode. As nonchalantly as they treated just doing the callback to First Day, that could just be the end of it. But here's the clip.
You have 10 seconds to explain your actions before we open fire.
It's my first day. Es mi día primero. Quack, quack, quack.
They left their ship. They jumped off of their ship.
They can make it
dangerous. I think, Mandarin speakers out there, tell me if Homer actually did say.
According to Al Jean and Mike Reese, they got the actual language, which they did not do in the past often. Yeah. So
I like that. It's at least, they go to the trouble to call somebody. I like that. Well, but yeah, that's pretty much the end of the episode right there. But they have to shove in the end of Crimson Tide after that.
Yeah, apparently that shot of the guy outside with a dog is from Crimson Tide.
This ending is the exact ending of Crimson Tide. So if you've not seen Crimson Tide here, I'll tell you what happens at the very end. There is no nuclear war. Denzel Washington succeeds and proves Gene Hackman wrong. Gene Hackman, being proven wrong, breaks his heart and he resigns from the military. They have a naval tribunal, which should be them saying to Gene Hackman, you almost ended the world, you go to jail. But instead, he has a friend on the tribunal who says, I will accept your resignation now and we will never speak of this, which that's the happy ending of the movie.
It works out for everybody.
And also, yes, the whole movie, Gene Hackman has a dog. Like, they talk in the beginning of he is so valued by the Navy that they let him bring a dog on the submarine. So he has a little Jack Russell Terrier, which he says the smartest of the breeds. And so when he and Denzel Washington are before the tribunal, staged in the exact way the episode does it too, they have an establishing shot of the tribunal at Pearl Harbor, and a serviceman man is walking his dog, so that's why there's a little
weird
dog.
pull.
It's an extreme specific.
Specific.
Yeah. And same with when they walk off into the sunset together. That's the last shot of Gene Hackman in the movie too, of him walking away with his dog. And thematically I read it as them saying that era of the Navy is over. It's for younger men like Denzel who have more nuance. See, it's not a time for warriors anymore, which funny how that was the message there too. Here's how the tribunal plays out in Simpsons.
Seaman Simpson, your actions have given the Navy a black eye from which it may never recover. I would throw the book at you, but I've been indicted in the tailhook scandal. Goodbye.
I too would punish you, but I'm under indictment for accepting bribes from military contractors.
I torpedoed a Carnival cruise ship.
Impersonating the First Lady.
I think you're off the hook.
Boy, another tailhook reference on The Simpsons. A little too late again. It was a 91 thing. We talked a bit about it on Who Shot Mr. Burns Part 2, that episode, because Smithers says he feels about as low as Madonna when she found out she missed tailhook. He got that from Pardon My Zinger. But it was this like military U.S. Marine Corps convention or like
a tradition of it. Yeah.
A meeting or a group or whatever where an astounding amount of people were sexually assaulted, like 83 women and 7 men.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
But that's how funny sexual assault was back then. I don't think you'd make jokes about that anymore.
But it was very much like a tailhook was a punchline.
Yeah, totally.
But I guess this was the era when like military scandals were possible.
Yeah. Also, when the guy says he's indicted for taking military bribes, I'm like,
that's just business.
I know. I mean, it really does this is an interesting like time capsule episode just for like, the attitude about the military then and now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought this scene was very funny, but it did, sort of come from this idea of like the military is like laughable and no one takes it seriously.
Yeah, and that people cared about their scandals either. Like, like not even military, but like the Blackwater guys, the amount of work it takes to get any of them for like murder of the war crimes, of the genocide they would commit. That should tell you how little America cares about what our military does. Which I'm sorry, troops, if you're listening to this podcast, I don't. There's bad things. Bad things are going on, guys. But yeah, the joking about that then feels very different from now. Like I think in 2001 they never would have made these jokes. Never ever.
No.
Like even if they would have wanted to, like the pressure. You think the Fox executives or the censors would have let them make fun of military service people even if they had wanted to? I highly doubt that.
Yeah.
When you also have to if you want to critique the military, you first have to say 800 times beforehand in your joke, but I love the military. They're the greatest.
Of course, I respect the service members who are the true heroes of our age. Them and the first responders. But with that said, I'll tell a joke about the military now.
I'm attacking the institution, not the people.
Yes. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Nothing but respect.
But we have our dishonorable ending here just to complete our episode. Let's play the clip.
A dishonorable discharge. It's the best we could have hoped for.
You can't spell dishonorable without honorable.
I think you're a hero, Dad.
Well, I couldn't have done it without Bart. Boy, I guess I was wrong about that earring. It saved us all.
Then can I get a tattoo that says bite me? You never know when it might come in handy.
I don't think so, son.
A King Cobra?
No.
Weapons grade plutonium?
Ask your mother.
Knockout drops?
No.
Ninja Death Stars?
Maybe for Christmas.
That ending also feels like a season 1 episode ending.
Yeah,
the characters. Actually, the end of the Homer's Odyssey. No, the Happy Family one, like them walking away from Marvin Monroe.
Yeah, that's right. Like walking down the street, like having a back and forth.
Yeah, it definitely feels old school in that way. I mean, it's
no disgrace like home. Sorry,
like a fade out ending.
Yeah,
like, songs just sort of lower the volume at the end.
Yeah,
it could have just. I mean, it could just ended with there's no dishonorable without honorable because the back and forth with him and Bart is not like super funny.
Yeah. Or you ended on Homer's woohoo. Like that feels like a hard enough like slap, like no one's punished, woohoo, the end. Like
I do like Marge's line read on like happily reading dishonorably discharged.
Yeah. The best they could have hoped for. I do like that. Yeah.
Dishonorably discharged. Funny.
Yeah, it does. If we're talking about losing the family in episodes, this does bring the family back into it, I suppose.
I guess Homer does approve of his earring at the end that we never see again.
Yeah. I guess Bart Bart. Bart should have, that again, there's a thing. Just have Bart say a line like, oh, it's not cool anymore. I don't wear them. Or him saying like, oh, you want me to wear an earring? I'm never going to wear an earring, Dad, or something. I don't know.
And by the way, Dad, Mr. Burns says you can have your job back too.
Yeah, we didn't really finish that plot element up.
They expect you to have forgotten he got fired.
Yeah, I mean, I did until we started doing this podcast. It's like, oh, right, he did get fired in this episode. But yeah, I guess that was Simpson Tide. Henry, you added a lot of context. If you're listening out there, and I hope you still are, please let us know, do you have memories of Crimson Tide? Like, did this stick in your mind as much as other movies from that era? Like, I don't know, Jurassic Park or things that are still referenced today. I just feel like, I'm sure it's good, and you say it's good, Henry, but it's like there's so many Tom Clancy-ish, Hunt for Red October, Sum of All Fears, submarine style movies that like this gets lots in the mix, I think.
Crimson Tide's a good movie just because I like seeing good actors yell at each other, and that's what the film is, with really fun lighting. But I mean, it is military propaganda. You're supposed to want to join the Navy after you watch it. Like it is Join the Navy, the movie. I still give it a thumbs up. This episode, there are funny bits in it because there's just so many jokes. I think that some have to succeed, but yeah, there's some real weaknesses here too, and I think to this point, Smithers dancing with the village people is maybe my least favorite joke in the series to this point.
Yeah, and we can see how they don't have a writer's room to run an episode through. They have like basically 4 people. So
I feel like the rewrite room would have grown to so much at that they'd have redone it. Like, I think. But that's just my guess.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on this one, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, my big takeaway is that like I'd sworn I'd seen every Simpsons episode. Then when I was starting to watch this one, I was like, I think I've never seen this episode. And then I realized that I had through the Russia sequence. So I don't know. I mean, I think this episode, it's maybe worth watching the Rocky and Bullwinkle couch gag and then the UN sequence through Russia, and that's about all you need.
So we'll do our plugs once we're off the line with you, Jack. Can you please tell us where we can find you and support you and your podcast?
So I do the Struggle Session podcast, which you can find at patreon.com/struggle session. And that's kind of like a lefty look at pop culture. And then I also do a daily Twitch stream every day with my wife. That's also out as a podcast now called Jack AM FM. But if you want to watch it live and with video, you can tune into twitch.tv/Jack AM Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Pacific every weekday.
I love both of those things. First off, with Struggle Session, I want to celebrate your live viewing of the Rise of the Skywalker trailer was very good. As was we talked about Blade Runner before, I think, and the one you guys did with David Hayter was a really, really good podcast.
He's so great. He's like a super. I was really impressed with David's sort of willingness to actually talk about structure and movies in a way that people in Hollywood are kind of like afraid to do that. I thought that was really cool. He's a great guy. That was a really fun episode to do.
And Jack AM is a lot of fun. I can only watch it so many times a week because sometimes it makes me too sad.
Yeah, it's a pretty brutal morning show. I mean, look, it's the topical show. So that's the one I'm doing where we are talking about what's going on in the world. And so, it reflects what's going on in the world. Sorry, and things are not so great right now.
And the fun games you have of people giving you bits to do certain things like the Wheel of Praise or the one you guys just did yesterday at the time of this recording of reading from the Michael Ian Black and Meghan McCain book.
Oh, God.
We're doing it a page at a time.
It's certainly hell, but...
America, you sexy bitch.
But Kate,
I'm surprised that Kate, my wife, does a really good
greatest.
Meghan McCain. I had
she
no
is
idea.
So good at Meghan McCain. Like, just watch or listen for that. That intro they do where they're just basically admitting, like, we have the same agent and we said we do a book and then we did a fake thing on Twitter where we agreed to write a book together.
It is truly funny. Like, that it's supposed to be like a fun or exciting story that their agents know each other. It's just so silly.
I hope that blood money was worth it for MIB. I think.
I hope so too. I mean, I do hope that. I do wish the best for Michael Ian Black, who I think is a funny guy, and I do hope he made a lot of money with the book that I happen to think sucks, and he shouldn't be so nice about Meghan McCain just because his fucking agent paired him with her at one point.
If the Michael Ian Black that I loved as a kid on State and Viva Variety and Stella, he would be the guy who now would be making fun of man, I can't believe I did a book with that piece of shit Meghan McCain.
It's
do that joke, man. But instead he's like, no, I made a deal. She's my friend. Like, fuck you.
That is so funny. It's like the idea that that your agent just like pairs you with a lifelong friendship. It's so funny to me, but whatever.
This is not dumping on Michael Ian Black time. But anyway, yes. And your Twitter account is very, very
yes,
funny.
is at Jack Allison, LOL. Don't fall for the imposter accounts. Just go to Jack Allison, LOL. Hey, you know, I can probably get the fucking check mark now that there's a million imposter accounts if I wanted it, but I don't.
The coolest people don't have the blue check mark. It's true. But thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been really fun to come on and talk with you guys. I'd be glad to come back anytime if you'll ever have me. And this has been a really great time.
So thanks again to Jack Allison. Remember to check out his podcast Struggle Session and Jack AM on his Twitch channel.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. He's a funny guy, and I love his caustic opinions on politics and the comedy industry that you'll find on Twitter.
He's telling it like it is. And we like
Don't you hate pants, Jack?
That's coming up next, isn't it?
It's actually happened in the past.
Oh my God. Well, we're recording it next. Please just forget I said anything, everybody. But listen to me, folks. If you want to help support the show and get some cool bonuses, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Everything we do is supported by that Patreon. And if you join at the $5 level, you will get everything that we do, including What a Cartoon and Talking Simpsons a week ahead of time and ad-free. And at the $5 level, we have a lot of bonuses, dozens and dozens of bonus podcasts, including all of our exclusive series, the newest of which is Talk King of the Hill. And Henry, what is our newer $10 tier?
Well, if you guys are regular subscribers or you're just waiting to sign up, at the $10 and up level, you'll get to hear our monthly What a Cartoon Movie podcast where me and Bob go over a different animated feature film once a month in the same Talking Simpsons style for up to and including 3 hours. You should listen to our most recent one if you sign up right now, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where I'm certain I said quite a lot of things about Peter Parker, my favorite fictional character. So please check that out too. $10 and up level, patreon.com/TalkinSimpsons.
And I have been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast is Retronauts. It's a classic gaming podcast. Every Monday and occasionally on Friday, please go to retronauts.com or look for Retronauts in your podcast machine and subscribe to it. Why don't you? Henry, how about you?
You should follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG. That's where you get all your updates from the Henry Gilbert world, which includes whenever new podcasts go live on the Patreon or on the free feeds, or also my own political and comedy thoughts. I'm only just copying Jack. He's the my inspiration. No, but definitely follow me on Twitter, HENEREYG.
Thanks a lot for listening, folks. We'll see you next week for The Trouble with Trillions, and we'll see you then.
Perfect sheep shank.
Very nice, Simpson. But next time, tie the other end to the ship.
Yeah,